The federal government finished its first sitting fortnight with a major victory by passing its climate bill through the lower house. Joining us live from Canberra now is the Deputy Opposition Leader Sussan Ley. Sussan, good morning, by the way. A resounding win for the Labor on climate. So how much is this going to affect you, and how much will you have to lift your targets for the next election?
Just remember, Pete, this was legislation that the government's own energy minister said they did not need. Spent half a day toing and froing in the parliament, when the real issue this week is the rising cost of living and the government's broken promise, $275 of broken promises on power bills. That was the figure by which they said your power bill would go down. So, there was some grandstanding, sure. There was legislation that everyone agreed, including the government, wasn't even necessary. And there was a deal with the Greens. I was interested to hear the Energy Minister saying we could have spoken to the Liberals, but we spoke to the Greens instead.
So how much are you going to have to lift your targets?
We've just come into opposition and, of course, we'll be discussing many things, including climate change, including the action to reach net zero, which was our commitment before the election. And we'll be tuning in very carefully to the international situation, because that's what matters to Australians, how we keep their power prices affordable, how we don't have manufacturers that go offshore, how we actually, as the Prime Minister has often said, keep a strong manufacturing industry, Australia, a country that makes things. Well, it won't be if the energy prices continue to escalate. So right now, that's our focus, not on legislation that the government admits itself was not actually even needed. That's not what the Parliament is for.
So would you wind that back if you won in 3 years' time?
Well, you're looking ahead to 3 years' time, and you know, Pete,
it's
that
best
no
to plan for the
opposition
future,
is going
though,
to talk
Sussan.
about 3 years' time. Well, who knows what will happen over the next 3 years? So the government is governing now and needs to focus on the needs of Australians right here and right now, instead of, grandstanding with legislation that's not required, referring every single problem that they have to the Jobs Summit at the end of September. They've been here, they're off the training wheels, they've got their feet under the desk, but we're not seeing real policies that make a difference to real families and real small businesses that are hurting.
Right, but you've got, you were looking towards, and you said you would meet and beat your climate targets, 28% of reduction of 2005 levels. You'd already predicted that was on track to get upwards of 35%. So would you at least start there?
We've always met and beaten our targets because we've always had a strong, solid plan that actually demonstrates how we get there, what we do, and how we keep electricity prices affordable. Now, we might start sounding like a broken record on this, but that's because we care. We care about the effect of rising prices on families, on households, on small businesses. I'm the small business shadow spokesperson. Every day I talk to businesses that are just looking in despair at the costs that they're facing that are increasing. And these are businesses that pay their wages on their credit card, have their family home mortgaged, that have invested so much life and time and are now, with rising costs, seeing less customers come in the door. Why can't the government's focus this week be on them?
Tanya Plibersek says your former government, deliberately sabotaged the Murray-Darling Basin plan. Did you?
Well, Tanya's a member from Sydney and I don't hold that against her. But what she needs to do is recognise that the people who live, breathe and work within the Murray-Darling Basin are thousands of kilometres away, and the first and most important thing she should do is consult them, not insult them. So she's made one flying over the basin trip. She may have landed in a couple of locations. I'll give her that. But has she really spoken to the families and communities that I represent across the southern Murray-Darling Basin? To come back to Sydney and make those sorts of ridiculous statements gives us a really bad feeling about how she's actually not going to engage on the issues that matter.
She says buybacks are on the table. Was it premature of your government to rule them out?
Well, we simply worked with the plan, and by the way, worked with state governments. And yes, we did rule out buybacks because we saw what Labor's buybacks did to our community. And we put careful social and economic safeguards around what happens next in the basin, because we're there for the communities, and I think this Labor government really needs to focus on those communities. Not only do they produce incredible wealth for the nation, but they're incredible people that are at the front line and innovating in every single thing they do. So to take a swipe at them in this way is incredibly out of order. And Tanya's a new minister in the water space. Water is a very complicated portfolio. Lots of people are lining up ready to speak to her in good faith. I suggest she does that.
I see you got shushed yesterday, Sussan Ley.
Yes, look, a shooing motion across the table in the parliament. I can take the rough and tumble. Every woman in this place knows how to do that. What I can't accept is the hypocrisy. Anthony Albanese said it was going to be a family-friendly parliament. There were going to be new notes of respect, and this sort of sit down and shut up motion across the table to a woman who's speaking as she's entitled to in the parliament simply breaks all of his own rules and demonstrates his hypocrisy. Look, that was a minor event, Pete, in a day where, as I said, we want to focus on families. Pardon?
Is a shoe that bad?
Do you see it in any modern workplace? Do you see it across the boardroom table?
I wouldn't.
I don't think you do. Of course you wouldn't.
Sussan Ley, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.